I would not spend a lot of time talking about Gaza because it is fresh in our mind. I would just talk about why Israel did what it did, so that we start from where we are now. Most of the time I'll talk about the past. Now, the Israeli attack, which we all know it's not a war, it was a massacre. It's not right to call it a war when the state, the fourth military power in the world, is attacking a prison camp. This is not a war. No more than the attacks by the Nazis on ghetto Warsaw was a war. It was a massacre. Let's just call it that. The first aim was to break the Palestinian unity. You remember that just before the attack started, the Palestinian camps got together. Basically, the PLO and Hamas formed the government. Now, this was a very difficult negotiation, but it was spurred on by the fact that more and more Palestinians, of course Hamas always said that, but the PLO and Fatah came round to starting to understand that there is nothing to talk about with the Israelis. The Israelis don't want to talk, they never did, and I'll come to why they're doing what they're doing either way. And the attack was there in order to separate Hamas from Fatah. Now, remember that when Hamas was created, it was held by Israel as a way of undermining Fatah. Now, they are using Fatah to undermine Hamas. This is normal for, occupation regimes. It shouldn't surprise us. So that was the first aim. The second aim, which is not less important, is to break the Gazans down, to terrorize them, to, of course, kill, of course, maim. But, why destroy the electricity plant? Yeah? Why destroy hospitals? Why destroy schools? Because it's about making life impossible in Gaza. Now, the Israelis are raving about canals and tunnels, but through those tunnels, many thousands of Gazans have left Gaza in the last few years. We don't talk a lot about this, and I think we should be aware of this. And I'm not criticizing people who want to protect their children for leaving Gaza, but this is a terrifying prospect. We should recognize that that's exactly what the Israelis want. And I'm not saying that the people are doing it because the Israelis want it, but the Israelis want Palestinians out of Palestine. That's what they want. And that is what they do every day of every week. So breaking the Gaza resolve means also undermining Hamas as the power that rules and actually resists for the Gazans and for the Palestinians. Now, why are they so interested in undermining Hamas? Because Hamas is now the only force that is resisting the occupation. Abu Mazen doesn't, yeah? So basically, it was very important to undermine Hamas politically as well as militarily. I point out to you that I think they have failed in both of those missions. I don't think they have undermined Hamas. Hamas is now more popular, despite the destruction, more popular because people realize that you have to resist the occupation. And in the military sense, I want to just say this. A population of 1.8 million living in a concentration camp with about 5,000 soldiers of Hamas and Jihad have fought the strongest army in the Middle East, and it could not be defeated. I think we should note this. This is amazing. This is more amazing than what the Viet Cong did to the American army. We should not forget that. So they failed. The third one is securing oil and gas, which is, there are huge deposits of oil and gas facing Gaza, and Israel has appropriated those. And of course, if there was at any point in time a Palestinian state that could claim and protect and exploit those, that would be against Israeli interests. So what we see is basically plunder, criminal plunder, like the crimes of war they have enacted in Gaza. This is also a crime. And basically it is aided and abetted by the largest companies on this earth, including, I'm sad to say, BP. BP, British Petroleum, is involved with Israel in this plunder. But so are other oil companies, the French oil companies, the Dutch oil companies, etc. The fourth aim was working with the al-Sisi regime to break down Islamic resistance, both Islamic resistance in Egypt and Islamic resistance in Palestine. Of course, there was a link between the Brotherhood in Egypt and Hamas. They are not the same organization, but they are sister organizations. And in the coup that removed an elected president, he wasn't perfect, but who is, yeah? So the elected president that was elected by a majority of Egyptians. Let us not forget that we're talking about democracy. And basically, the democratically elected president in Egypt was removed by a military coup. And basically what we have now is Mubarak II. That's what we have in Egypt. Mubarak II is worse than Mubarak I because he already knows what happened to Mubarak I. More dangerous as well. And therefore, he immediately got in touch, or the Israelis did, before the coup. And we now know this from a number of reports. And both the United States and Israel were involved in backing the al-Sisi camp in the coup. So working with al-Sisi is very important to both sides. Al-Sisi did not change the situation in Gaza. He has not removed the blockade, on the contrary. Now, the fifth one is uniting Israeli society. Now, in that, I think they have succeeded. Israeli society is, I'm talking about the Jewish Israeli society, the 75% of Israel which is Jewish, is united behind Netanyahu like it never was before. 96% of them voted for the war crimes in Gaza. By voted, I mean, we found this through surveys, yeah? And I'm not doubting the result of the surveys. Netanyahu and his crimes are supported very popularly by Jewish population of Israel. I am ashamed that people who say that I belong to them, I don't, yeah. And they're not doing it in my name, as you know. But people that I originated from are now supporting a fascist military illegal regime in conducting those war crimes, not for the first or the second time. However, there is huge support for Netanyahu in Israel. Now, I want to say that, don't forget that Netanyahu in 2011 was tottering on the brink. And in the wake of the Arab Spring, so-called, the intifadas in the Arab world, what happened is an intifada started in Israel. Not a violent one, but worrying enough for Netanyahu and his henchmen to do something about it. Now, what do you do in Israel when you want to unite a society? You attack Lebanon, Syria, Gaza, you attack. And immediately, a few months after the tent process in the summer of 2011, Netanyahu attacked Gaza and started uniting the society around this madness. This started coming apart in 2014, and therefore a new attack was necessary, and it came and it was successful. And the last aim was defeating the two-state solution. Now Israel, of course, like the United States, like this country, like the whole of Europe, like Canada, Australia, the West, well, the EU, are supposedly committed to a two-state solution. Have you heard about the two-state solution? For the last 47 years, have you heard about it? Israel has never meant the two-state solution. It will not allow it. In the last few weeks, 4 ministers said there is no two-state solutions. We are not leaving the territories. We are not intending to leave the settlements, full stop. Now, I never believed in the two-state solutions, but everyone in the world seems to be believing in it, including the PNA. I don't think they believe in it. So, the defeat of the two-state solution is probably successful. 800,000 Israeli Jews now live in the West Bank. 800,000. When you get those figures on the BBC, they say it is 500,000. You know why? Because they don't include the 300,000 in Jerusalem, which was illegally annexed. So it's 800,000 and it's growing. And who helps it? The EU and the US are helping to finance this and to make it secure. So, this is where we are. How did we get here? Now, where do we go when we look at the past? You see those dates, you probably know the meaning of all those dates. And actually, we can go back to 1896. I'm not suggesting to stop at 1967. I won't talk about all this, but I just want to explain that in 1896, what we are seeing today was already in writing. In June 1896, Herzl, the father of political Zionism, has written in his secret diary, which is available in English, but there are only 2 copies in Britain of the complete diary, in the British Library and in SOAS. I know, I've looked for them, yeah? The only 2 copies of the complete diaries, as opposed to the diaries, yeah? And in the complete diaries, on the 12th of June, 1896, you find out that in about 25 pages, Herzl describes the dispossession of the Palestinian population and invents the concept of transfer. The Palestinian population, he doesn't call them that, the Arabs, will be transferred to what he calls the transfer countries, the Arab countries surrounding Palestine. How will we do it? He discusses all the practicalities. So when people come to you, like left-wing liberals and Zionists of the left, and tell you, you know, something went wrong in 1967, or maybe they'll say 1956, or some of them who are more radical might say something went wrong in 1948. No, something went wrong in 1896. At the birthplace and the moment of birth of the Zionist political project. It is based, and will be based on the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. We have to face this. We have to face the fact that they have never relented, they have never given up, they have never changed that. And any idea that you can actually come to an agreement with Zionism is mistaken, and for that matter, dangerous for Palestinian life. Now, I want to go to 1967, if we go to the next one. In 1967, there is the emergence of an idea which at the time the Israeli government is calling illegal. In Israel it was illegal to speak about two-state solution in 1967. I was there. I was an army officer. It was illegal to speak about, and if you did, you face the law. Why was it illegal? Because they never meant for that possibility to even emerge. And indeed, in 1948, Ben-Gurion almost managed to destroy that by taking not the 55% of Palestine that was criminally given by the UN to the Jewish state, but 78%, 4/5 of Palestine, was taken by force. And do remember that 750,000 Palestinians, 2/3 of the population of Palestine, was ejected by force, by murders, by massacres, by the overwhelming army, which was more modern and twice as big as all the other armies of the Arab states put together. Palestine did not have an army. Now, in 1967, something happens that will change everything. For the first time, Israel is not only in control of the whole of Palestine, but also of parts of Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Egypt. And it holds all the cards. And the most important card it holds is called the United States, which before 1967 was iffy. And in 1956, when Israel worked with the two old empires, the United States was against it and forced it, together with the Soviet Union, to get out of Sinai, or else, and they did. So in 1967, a lot of things happened that are not immediately understood. And for the first time, Israelis have choices to make. What are they going to do with territories? What are they going to do with the population? And for about 3 months, the Israeli government is sitting more or less day and night. And I'm indebted, and you're indebted, to Ilan Pape, who has brought those documents to us for the first time to English readers. And we then learned that what they did is understood that there are a number of options for them. Can we go to the next one? They face a dilemma. Now, the dilemma is basically they want a Jewish state. And I'll come back to that as well. But they also wanted the imperial state. In other words, they wanted all the territories. Now, of course, if you hold to the territories with almost 2 million non-Jewish population combined, you can't really have a Jewish state unless you say, these people don't exist. I don't recognize them. I don't give them any rights. They actually could be on the moon. Now, if, on the other hand, they annexed those territories, which was an option they faced, the annexation itself will be illegal. But the annexation would mean that they would have to give the people in the territories a legal status. A legal status could only mean citizenship of some kind or another. It might be a very limited citizenship, but it would mean that. That is against their plan, because what they always wanted, and they still want, and they are quite successful in doing, is dislodging those people from Palestine. And we better believe them, because they keep saying this and doing it, and yet some people, including in Palestine, are still believing that they don't mean that. Well, there is all the evidence to persuade us. So what happened? They had to decide how to hold the territories, but not give the people any rights. Not only that, there was a view in the army and in right-wing circles, etc., that Israel is strong enough to eject or expel most of the leftover of the people of Palestine. And this was a debate, and it's still going on. And they decided not to do it because Israel held the upper hand politically in 1967. It presented itself as being under attack by Nasser in Syria. People without education, not just in Israel, believed it because they didn't read anything and believed the propaganda. And they didn't want to undermine that position by now moving against it. So they decided not to annex, because annexation would be a big thing, and they also would be required to give those people some kind of status, which they didn't intend to, because Ben-Gurion taught them that those that you can get rid of today, you get rid of today. Those that you can't, you will get rid of tomorrow. And wasn't he right? And he also said, those territories that you can get today, you get today. And those that are left, you will get tomorrow in another war. And wasn't he right again? So, what has emerged is a debate about the two-state solution. How do we hold the territories, but also have a Jewish state? And frankly, you can't do it. It's squaring the circle. But like so many other circles, it can be squared. And what Israel has done is decided not to decide. In other words, they would hold the territories. They will not annex them. They will not give rights to the Palestinian people. But they would settle the territories and confiscate the land and try and make the life of Palestinians total misery, so that they will force people to leave and wait for another opportunity to push the rest out. This is, in a sentence, what they have decided in the month after 1967. Who has decided it? Every Jewish party in parliament, in a unity government. The only people that have not agreed to this are the Arab parties and the Communist Party. This is a badge of shame. We should remember it. And when Zionists of the left talk to us, we should remind them. This was decided in secret, and this decision has never changed and is still the principle of Israeli policies. So there were, can we go to, so you can see basically who is actually arguing what. Before Oslo, there was a lot of pressure because of the Intifada. You remember the first Intifada, so-called first Intifada. There was an Intifada in 1929, there was an Intifada in 1936. They were not called that, but they were Intifadas. Of course, the Palestinians called them Intifadas. So, in 1987, the first so-called Intifada starts. It is brutally broken. It takes 3 or 4 years to break it. And there is enormous pressure on Israel to do something. Not something to liberate Palestine, to give the land back. There was no real pressure from the West. There still isn't. No, the pressure was to do something. In other words, let's just make sure that something is happening. As long as something is happening, we say, well, we're talking, This is, there are negotiations. Talks about talks, And so, what happens? The only result, and the bad result of the first Intifada for Israel was the Oslo Accords. The Oslo Accords were basically an Israeli program. The PLO, until 1988, in other words, until the Intifada, had a position which was totally reasonable. One democratic state in the whole of Palestine, a state of its citizens, everyone having the same rights. Now tell me, what is wrong with democracy? What is wrong with human rights for all? What is wrong for the end of apartheid? Yeah? So it was very difficult to fight that. And what they invented is, together with the Americans, of course, is the Oslo Accord, which basically was understood by people as offering a Palestinian state. You would agree with me that if you ask most people what the Oslo Accord did, is offering the Palestinians a state beside Israel. Well, read the Accords, it never offered that. It didn't. It offered negotiations. And those negotiations have never finished. And in a sense, they've never started. Because there was no negotiation to this very day about a Palestinian state. And the only thing that was achieved by the Oslo Accord is that Netanyahu, in his first government, after he helped the murder of Rabin, what he did is he left an area called H4 in Khalil, Hebron. That's all. That's the only part that Israel carried out of the Oslo Accord, and then it stopped. So, basically, what did the Palestinians get after the Oslo Accords? Well, let's ask Arafat. Arafat said, the right to kill our own mosquitoes. That's what Palestine got out of the Oslo Accord. What did Israel get out of the Oslo Accord? Well, they got the right to rule the whole of Palestine. To not leave because there are talks about talks, about talks, about talks. And Israel has continued with this ambiguity. As long as we're talking, no one can do anything to us. There is an ambiguity which is leading to an immunity and impunity. And in the meantime, we can kill whoever we want, we can exile whoever we want, we can take and confiscate anything we want, and all we need to do is, can't you see that we are talking? Who is talking to whom? Now, I think I want to end by talking about what is the task before us. And I only got 5 minutes, I think. Am I right? Yeah. So I want to probably read out my last 5 minutes so that I keep to the time. If we understand the amazing lie, the amazing, campaign of lies, not a lie, but a campaign of lies, which still continues, in order to make the continuation of the occupation possible, then we have to think very radically about the solution. The enormity of the task before us is, in a sentence, as long as Zionism is alive and well, Palestine will not be alive and will not be well. That is, I think, something we have to recognize. Now, I'm really glad to speak in the context of therapy, because I believe in therapy, not just individual therapy, but also social and political. And I think that's important to understand when you listen to the next 5 minutes. Now, that Israel, despite its size, is a major world player is clear to anyone who reads the news. Its high technology is one of the most successful anywhere, being artificially supported by US and EU funding. A Palestinian captive market of 4 million non-citizens that cannot import or leave or do anything they want. They are in the hands of Israel. And an armament industry selling death and destruction to everyone, everywhere, involved in violence. It thrives under a blanket of exceptionalism, to use Giorgio Agamben's term, giving it immunity and impunity, supported by the strongest powers of the West. Israel is also building its links with China. Just watch the news, and other BRICS countries as the next stage of world politics is dawning, preparing the replacement of the US in the near future. As its protector declines in world stature, they are looking for the next. China, India and Brazil are not less important for our campaign than US and UK and the EU. And this is presenting difficulties. The campaign should never be Eurocentric or US-centric, which it is at the moment. It should be a global campaign spanning the whole globe in a way that the AA, the anti-apartheid, did in the 1980s. Because Palestine has reached its South African apartheid moment. This is the moment. And when in 1973, I came to Britain in 1972. In 1973, I joined the AA, anti-apartheid. In a room smaller than this, not half the people in this room sat and talked about the end of apartheid. If somebody came to us and told us, do you know that in 20 years' time, Nelson Mandela will be the president of a united South Africa? We will send him to therapy. So, when people say to you, what you are arguing about Palestine will never happen, remind them that. Remind them that 3 weeks before the end of the Soviet Union, no one in the West could say in 3 weeks or in 3 months or in 3 years, the Soviet Union will be finished. The Zionist onslaught is not just financial and military, this is very important, but also cultural. One of the clearest signs of Israeli influence of the political global agenda is the so-called war on terror. This Sharon doctrine has infiltrated and converted the West over the last 3 decades, supported by the Huntington dogma of clash of civilizations, responsible for much of the Islamophobia and cultural and military attack on Arab and Islamic societies, which we see every day. Every hour. The invention of the bizarre term Judeo-Christian civilization, an oxymoron if there ever was one, is an example of this Zionist onslaught on our cultures. It is there to persuade the West that Christianity and Judaism have a common enemy, Islam, of course. This flies in the face of the history of 2,000 years of Christian anti-Semitism and Jewish-Muslim cultures combining efforts in the Arab world and in Spain, the Balkans and Turkey. In other words, it's an inversion of history. It's a denial of history. That Zionist apologists in the West, Jews and non-Jews, have managed to convert most Western channels of influence to this ideology is proof of the success in becoming the newly accepted dogma, facilitating the war against Israel's supposed enemies, by many other countries, presenting it as being in their own interest. It is in our own interest to kill Arabs and Muslims in Britain, supposedly. Every day we're told that. On this background, we need to understand what Israel and Zionism see as the next stage. In order to fight it, before it materializes and overwhelms us, Zionism had a single aim, which is unchanged since 1896, to clear Palestine of its Arab inhabitants. This has never changed. It is now clearer than ever that every single move of the Israeli state is planned to advance that goal. That Zionism will try to effect a second, more successful Nakba is inevitable. It is part of its structural raison d'etre. This is exactly what it is about. It's not a result of Zionism, it is Zionism. It is not part of Zionism. It is what it is about. Once this is understood, the futility of negotiating for a two-state solution is also clear. And to end, while Palestine, and can we go to the next? While Palestine cannot defeat Zionism on the military background, next. You missed something. No more than it could in 1948, it can be defeated by a combination of Palestinian Sumud, boycott and resistance, supported by the international community working through strict BDS action to delegitimize and isolate Israel until it is forced by international action into dissolving Zionism and all its racist machinery. Not the word, not the concept, the practice as well. Everything in Israel is basically apartheid-based. And ending the apartheid. The only solution which I can see providing the future basis of Palestinians and Israeli Jews, 12 million of whom live between the Jordan River and the sea, is a single, secular, democratic state in the whole of Palestine. A solution supported for decades by the PLO until the change in 1988. Having made the two-state solution all but impossible, the Israelis have defeated themselves. A Jewish state is no longer possible in Palestine. They've made it impossible by their actions. Instead, we shall have a state of all its citizens, de-Zionized, purge of racism, where the Palestinian refugees shall have a right of return. And can we go to the last one? More than at any other point in time, the struggle to make further ethnic cleansing or even genocide in Palestine is now depending, is now depending on the international solidarity movement and BDS. We never were in the situation that the Israelis have everything to, it's like the last card. And the last card is Nakba 2. And they mean it. And the support of equal rights in Palestine. We need to step up our efforts in order to have a real chance of success. One which will deliver not just the end of Zionist apartheid, but a truly democratic and equal society in the whole of Palestine. Thank you.
About, or very little about the issue, which is this word settlement. The Israeli settlements And in their mind, a settlement is just a few houses. And I'm just wondering where the word came from, because...
The word settlement?
Yeah.
Well, it's the history of colonialism. Colonials have settled, you know.
Yeah.
That's where it's coming from.
But I think the wider, more ignorant community thinks of settlements as, just a few houses dotted here and there.
The Israeli society is a settler society. It's a settler colonial society. Herzl called it that. He meant it to be. They created a colonial bank in 1903. That's what it was called. And the colonial bank, in its mission, was to collect money for settlement. So they didn't play with words. These are colonial settlers, and they were trying to, and succeeded in colonizing a third world country. Now, I'm an Israeli Jew, but that doesn't mean to say that I've got to deny the historical process. Yeah. That's what they've done. They said that they will do that, and they did it.
Thank you. I'm told actually tea and coffee are not quite ready, so it's time for a couple more questions. Yes?
Forgive me, I'm a Palestinian originally from 1948. My parents went out of Palestine with the refugees there. It gives me a lot of hope to hear people like yourself and Professor Haim Bresheeth and Nico Palad. But my main thought, which I want to express, is that Israel wouldn't be able to do what it's doing without the support of the United States and England. I've yet to see one government here not supporting Israel. And what's the solution of that?
Can I just say this? We're of similar age. And I've seen, when I was much younger, coming to London, people said this, look, it's South Africa. All countries are supporting South Africa. Mrs. Thatcher was a great supporter of South Africa and was the one before last to give up on it, before Reagan. So, things change. We need to change it, as we did in the case of South Africa. And please don't misunderstand me on 2 points. One, this is more difficult than the campaign we had against the apartheid regime in South Africa. 100 times more difficult. Because they didn't have the Holocaust on their side and all the things we'll talk about in workshops later on. So that's one thing. The other thing is the solution in South Africa so useful to the black people? So on those 2 counts I want to say, yes, we need to learn from the campaign for South Africa, and we need to learn from the mistakes made, including by the black leadership, including Nelson Mandela. Look at Naomi Klein's book. She analyzes beautifully where Mandela went wrong. And maybe he couldn't do anything else. But the Palestinians should not do what Mandela did and preserve either Zionism or apartheid in another form. There is no place for them. So I think what we're talking about, BDS started small in 2005. I was there when it was born, and I'm a member of the British Committee for Palestine, universities in Palestine that gave it birth. And in those less than 10 years, I have seen, because I was both in the campaign against apartheid and in this, in 10 years we have made 20 years of advance that we did in the case of South Africa. So yes, you're right, it looks hopeless. I know. We are working against it and we're suffering for it and we're seeing very little, but actually we're seeing more and more every day. In the United States, the great partner of Israel in crime, people are now standing in ports not allowing Israeli ships to embark. This is the United States. This government's parliament has recognized Palestine. Let's not sing and dance about this, because it means very little. No, it means quite a lot. It means that Many hundreds of thousands of British people have telephoned, have written, sent emails to their MPs and said to them, this cannot continue. And this is meaningful, that most of the members of parliament in Britain, as they did in Sweden, as they will do in France and in Spain in the next few weeks, said enough is enough. Now, okay, it doesn't have teeth, but we have the teeth. We, I mean the BDS movement, the academic boycott, the artist boycott, the sports boycott. We can do it. And we can do it without violence, and we can do it without being a bad copy of the Israeli Zionists. And we will.
Thanks very much, Well, the tea and coffee is now ready. If you go upstairs, the stairs there are all